Earlier this year, the discovery of the remains of 215 Indigenous children, students of Canada's largest residential school, prompted national outrage and calls for further searches for unmarked graves. Since then, 2 more grave sites have been found. It's triggered a national reckoning over Canada's legacy of residential schools, which were part of a policy to attempt to assimilate Indigenous children and destroy their cultures and languages. Barbara Plett-Usher has visited the province of Saskatchewan to find out more.
For decades, the site of the Muskowgon Residential School filled Indigenous children with fear and dread. Today, it is a haunting reminder of a dark period in Canadian history.
6 years old, I was imprisoned here.
Isidore Poorman and 3 of his brothers were students in the late 1970s. He remembers strict rules and harsh punishments. Around 150,000 Indigenous children were sent to such schools, cutting them off from their families, traditions and language. It was a government program, but often run by the church. Cultural genocide is what an official commission called it in 2015.
What happened when you spoke your language here?
I got hit like everybody else that spoke the language here. We got beaten, we got called names, bad names, dirty little savages.
A number of unmarked graves were found at Muskowgon before the recent discoveries. Stories of such graves were common among the students.
The son of a survivor, and he told me that his dad buried a kid over there, just over those hills.
A child from the school?
A child from the school. He buried a child over there.
The findings from searches at residential schools have renewed calls for justice and opened old wounds. In the northern city of Prince Albert, survivors are reliving the trauma, talking about it openly like never before.
At least we know now what happened to the students and that did not return to school. The ones who did not return home. We never talked about it.
You never talked about it?
We never talked about it, no. Just kept silent. Because we were afraid.
Indigenous leaders have finally begun to get government support for further grave searches. But they're also demanding accountability, access to archives, an apology from the Pope, even an international investigation.
There was a crime against humanity, a crime against children that no one should ever face. There was torture, abuse, and death in those institutions. And someone, somewhere, must face the consequences.
Some Catholic bishops in Saskatchewan also want the Vatican to act, but stress that apologies are not enough.
A big step towards reconciliation is a new understanding of our history in this country. We're talking about the deepest historical wound in this country. And if it's complicated and messy to address it today, it's because that wound is deep and profound and has never been dealt with well.
At another residential school site in the province, that history is now painfully visible, marked out grave by grave. Momentum is gathering to search for the truth across Canada. Barbara Plett-Usher, BBC News, Saskatchewan.